All
All
right.
right.
Live.
So should be going live pretty soon. It's gonna be exciting. It's just redirecting to YouTube. So
Okay.
I might actually open this up on Instagram. I might just do like an Instagram live, and like we can kind of I'll be able to like maybe have people join on live and then direct questions and stuff. So I'm just gonna go live now.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. When you're ready to get started, I have a new branch for you to download too.
Oh, nice. Okay, this is gonna be really exciting. I'm excited. All right, sweet. All right. So this is Brian from the Tech Stack Playbook. I am super, super excited for this YouTube live. I have one of my really great friends found through the open source community, Jason. Jason, I will not introduce you. Do you want to introduce yourself and kind of introduce yourself to the audience and like what you do and what you're passionate about?
Yeah, definitely. So to start with, I've been a huge open source advocate for quite a long time. I've run my own IT company and been in the IT field for about 17, 18 years now. And back in late 2019, I stumbled upon Stacks. Then it was Blockstack. Absolutely fell in love with what they were doing. I got involved with the community. That's how I ended up meeting Brian. And I've been having a lot of fun since. So my role in the community, I work for one of the entities that exist in the Stacks community called Freehold. I'm a DevOps engineer by day. And I'm also a core developer on the CityCoins protocol, which launched about 3 months ago with Miami Coin and has seen some great success.
That's awesome. All right, this is super cool. So we actually met through working on an open source project during the pandemic and kind of keeping in line with Hacktoberfest, which DigitalOcean puts on once a year, every October, to unite people around what open source is, open innovation, bring people together. So we thought it'd be really fun to kind of collaborate on really a project that you are like a core contributor of, and it's open source, it's blockchain, it's exciting. So that's kind of what we're doing, and also kind of talk about DevOps, talk about GitHub. Really, this is kind of like your like first step. Like if you've like never used GitHub, if you've never done open source, this is kind of like a deep dive into how to get started. And Jason will be guiding us through that, and we're gonna be contributing some code to his code base. So this is gonna be super fun. We're gonna keep it high level. I'm gonna share screen, and hopefully that will get everything kicked off.
Yeah, definitely. And just to give you a little more background, so within the CityCoins protocol, we have a user interface that is completely open source. It's welcome for people to fork it or just take a look at some of the code examples that exist inside it. And today we're going to look at the basic process of what it would take to bring down a branch that I'm working on, submit some changes, and get a good PR going.
Awesome. I'm just messaging someone on Instagram who said that they can't hear you, and that is because you are on YouTube. But yeah. All right. So all right, I'm gonna share my screen. All right, cool. Can you hear like the music in the background and everything?
Yeah, coming through good for me.
Okay, awesome. I spent so much time trying to like figure out all the right tech stack for this type of stuff. So
it gets better every time. That's the thing.
Always positive progress. All right, sweet. So I'm gonna pull up Discord. Okay, cool. So do you want me to pull up the Miro board and we can kind of like jump through that? Okay, awesome.
Yeah, we'll just take a quick look over that. Miro, love this tool for being able to like organize together flows of thoughts, especially when it comes around what we're doing with logic and similar. So here, what I've done is just kind of outline my overall goals as we're looking at the UI. And really, it was functional as is. It lives at mindcitycoins.com. But now that we're looking at what it's going to look like with possible future cities, we're definitely going to have to do some reorganization. So starting from top left, you've just got the name of the site, Mind City Coins, and then some of the proposed pages that you'll see. So we'll need a core landing page, and then everything else that happens is actually per city. So there needs to be a way to select a city, and in doing so, you'll see some information that's public, and you'll see some information that you can only see once you're logged in. That would give you register, mine, or stack.
Okay.
Yep. So those are the different pages you're highlighting there. And some of the ideas of like what we wanted for different little components or pieces that would show. Like for example, it'd be great to know the value of the current city's wallet and the amount that's been locked in the contract for the current cycle and a lot of this other fancy stuff. So it breaks down into those. And then down below all of the pages and routes that you see right there, the second row of stuff that starts in purple, ends in green, that is actually every function, both public and read-only, within the core contract and the token contract. So today, my part of this is I'm going to be writing a library that interacts with each of those functions and creates a JavaScript equivalent. And that way, it's really easy to plug and play in a component when you say, hey, I need this function, I can grab it. So you'll see that on the left, and that kind of ties into the libraries that are on the right, purple and blue as well. Aside from that, I just included some basic ideas of what the layout is going to look like. Very similar to what it is today, but we're going to add on a little bit of a nav bar. So that would start with the logo that you see, and then the nav bar right there, which will show up. Different components of that will show up depending on if the city is selected and if the user is logged in. But most of this is already there. So what we're going to be doing today is trying to take the existing code and do as little work as possible, but really freshen it up and make it look a little nicer.
Awesome. I was going to say, you did so much stuff on this. I think you might have shown this to me like a long time ago, but like there's so much built out. Like this is so organized, and I really like Miro as a product management tool. Like it's very, very clean. I feel like I've used Figma for wireframing, but not as much Miro. But this is like a really great tool. I'm like really digging this.
It's really popular. You know, one of the things I'll say up front is I'm not a designer. I just like to be able to visualize some of what I'm thinking about. And a lot of this I used to do on paper, but I found it to be a tool that's really useful for doing it digitally, plus being able to share.
That's super cool. And I feel like, I know when people say like, oh, like I'm not a designer, like you still like are a designer. Like this is really organized and it's colorful and it's very visual, and like it's helpful, I think, for a coder where you're able to like, you know, even just kind of like I can get your vision. Like obviously with like the functions and stuff, that is like your zone, because like super like you get that. But then like being able to get, okay, like the UI component of that, like we're going to be mapping how like the vision of the code, how the user is walking through that code. So this is super cool. All right, this is awesome. So I feel like first step is figure out the project. The next step is design something, or maybe structure something out in a product management tool like this that kind of maps through the vision and what you're looking to do, right? Is that like a good second step?
I think so. You know, it's nice to have a little bit of a plan in place. That way you're not just rushing through and you're like, oh, I could have put this component at a higher level, or maybe I wanted to have a reference in a constants file or something similar. Like to me, this is just that basic round of organization that says, okay, I know how I want things laid out. Now I just have to get the code to speak my language.
Awesome. All right, cool. So this is really great. Jason, now we have our vision of our product. We have a design. What's the next step? What do we want to do?
Yeah, next step is going to be to head over to GitHub. So I shared with you a link to the CityCoins UI, which is the main repository we'll be working out of. And the next step is really going to be you making sure that you've downloaded the repository, that you've checked out the correct branch, and then we'll start working together on some of the content.
Awesome. And I'm just gonna get, oh, can I want to like delete
that
some
out
stuff.
real quick.
Yeah. I'm gonna like undo stuff. So just to kind of like walk people through, or maybe kind of just for people that maybe have never seen GitHub or maybe have never like worked on a project before. So obviously CityCoins, this is like the owner of the project. Then this is the sub projects. This is like the code repository itself. it might have been forked from somewhere. Fork just means like it was like duplicated and then put into a different repository. And then I see that we're working on the main branch. I see that you've contributed quite a lot of branches to this. So there's like 28 of those. And then this is like that general code, right? So I see that this kind of looks like that React app. You have like a source folder. There's like a git ignore, or at least like with React, it kind of looks like that. There's a public folder. There's a GitHub folder. There's some sort of documentation. And I see that JavaScript, we like JavaScript. We love JavaScript. Yeah. Oh, there's issues, code. What else? What did I miss?
Oh, no, not at all. Just kind of going over the same thing. So the CityCoins top left, that would be your organization. That's usually a place that would hold a whole bunch of different repositories under the same idea, whether that be for a company or for a protocol or for something in general. And just like you pointed out on there too, I mean, a lot of little things to look at. I'd say the last button that's the most important, at least in this layout, is the one that says code, because it normally would say, well, you normally see clone when you go from repo to repo. And what we've done here is we created this repository as a template. So you could literally hit that green use as template button and just get started with this code and knock it out. But in our case, we want to work on this repository. So that code button is going to be the key to getting the correct links for being able to download the repository locally.
Awesome. Yeah, and even like when we were going through this before, I remember when I said like, oh, like, where's the green like code button? And then like they changed it. So that's super interesting that you can have different types of code repositories and they can have different use cases. So like you can either like use it as a template or just download it. And if you're new to GitHub or just Git in general, highly recommend GitHub Desktop. I had like a lot of conversations, Jason, I don't know if you do, but like, I think people are like, no, you have to use Git from the terminal. Like, you don't have to do anything. Like, you use a tool that's like the easiest for you. I feel like GitHub Desktop makes it really easy to work with GitHub, but some people kind of are like bullish on using Git from the terminal. But I feel like for anyone that's just starting out, like GitHub Desktop is like super, I don't know, like beginner advanced friendly. Like it's super easy to use, and like also for version control. That's what I'm going to be doing. So then you'll click on that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see some of the differences. I'm more inclined to go command line just because that's what I like and what I'm But I'm all for people just trying things. So, you know, if you're brand new to this and you don't want to dive all the way into Git, you do have tools like GitHub Desktop that can definitely help.
100%. Yeah, it's like use the tools that like work for you. Like if you've always used a terminal, then like that's going to make the most sense to you. But also GitHub Desktop is a friendly backup as well. So actually, if you were basically launching this in GitHub Desktop for the first time, you would open up a folder on your computer and then basically it would say like, where do you want to basically drop this? It's going to have a hidden file that's going to tell Git where this folder lives, so that when you then go and push it or you pull code, it's going to know that that's the location on your computer where you're basically creating that from. We've already done this, so that's just why I was able to come up right away. But I see that it's here. And then if I want to actually open this up, I can reveal in Finder. So I can right click on any of the files that I've changed. And then I see that this is here. So if we wanted to open up in the terminal, I'm just going to do clear. Oh, whoop. Is that giving me it? No. I need the actual folder.
There we go.
Yeah, okay, cool. Forgot that you can't always like drag and drop files as well as folders. So basically what I did was, so I just right clicked on GitHub right here. I said reveal in Finder. I'm on a Mac, but maybe it's like reveal in Windows Explorer if you're on Windows. And then it's gonna open up this. As we just found out, you do actually need to find the folder, not the file. So I did CD, which is change directory, and then I dragged and dropped this folder in here. And then I just did CD space ... and then I went back. So like one hierarchy up, and then that's to the whole container. So then if we do code, I can open it up in VS Code, and then that'll pull it up automatically.
Beautiful. And while we're on it, do you know, looks like you can change your branch there at the top of GitHub desktop?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and swap that out. It'll be upd/refactor. You can just search for refactor in the filter there too. Can you pull the latest? Can you fetch origin?
Yeah.
Right next to current branch there. That'd be a git pull for anybody using the command line.
Yeah. Okay. So that was a good life lesson. So so this is important. So when I pulled this repository like a couple days ago or a day ago, you had added code in the back end, but my code base isn't going to automatically know that there's new stuff pulled, right? So then you do fetch origin. It then goes to GitHub and is like, is there anything there? Obviously you did, and then you pull it. But that's like pull request, right? Like if you do like git pull in the terminal.
Actually, git pull is similar to git fetch. Usually git fetch will grab the changes and you can decide what to do with them. Like if, for example, let's say I'm working on the main branch, I've made some changes, but then some changes got pushed up to the repo that I didn't have. I could fetch them and then decide how to merge them. Or I could do a pull, which would overwrite my local copy with what's on the remote. So you have two options. Pull includes fetch in a way, but that's a little bit of how you interact. And typically when you're doing work on GitHub in general, you're going to create a new branch for the task that you're setting out to do, whether it be specifically based on one issue, multiple issues, or just around a feature. Like in this case, we're doing a refactor.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you would merge that branch back into main.
Awesome. All right, cool stuff. So it looks like this is the one we want, right? Refactor V2?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay. Cool.
And
so that's on YouTube.
Okay, so what it's asking you here is you've made some local changes. Do you want to keep those changes or did you just want to leave them behind?
Yeah, I'm just going to leave them on main.
Want to leave them behind, but that's important to know when you're accidentally making changes or if you're not sure what branch you're on.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So we're going to switch branch. And then you'll see here, so like GitHub just automatically updated this based upon that branch. So it's just kind of cool how like it happens so fast automatically.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can do it literally. I'll have the server running with yarn start, like it says there, and it will change the layout of the page just upon changing the branch. Like it'll also catch that hot reload, which has been pretty cool. Speaking of, we should probably do that. So the first thing with this repository in particular is you can actually run the UI and interact with it live. It lives on localhost, and that's a lot of how you get your feedback loop in development. So with this, do you have Yarn installed? Do you know?
Oh yeah, I use Yarn.
Okay. And for anybody who doesn't have Yarn installed, the command to install it is actually using npm. So you do npm -i -g -yarn, and that installs it globally, so it would be available for all packages. So npm is the Node package manager that comes along with Node, but some people prefer to use Yarn for a few different reasons. For me, I've just enjoyed my development experience with it so far. I don't have a ton of arguments over using npm or Yarn, but this project we use it, so we just keep using it.
Sweet. So I'm just pulling up some stuff for anyone that's new to open source. So I have on my screen Node.js. If you want to get npm, which Jason, what you just said, Node Package Manager, when you install Node for the first time, it'll ask if you also want to install npm. So if you haven't ever done that, make sure that you install Node. I have the website. It's just nodejs.org. Typically the LTS is like the most applicable version. But then when you install it, it'll ask like, do you want to install npm? So then you install npm. Then npm is like, I think it's like underrated. There's like so many code bases here for like just different projects. So basically you can get npm, like search for like literally anything online. And then if you want to get Yarn, pretty sure this is not going to have anything related to
go to your local craft store and that's where you get Yarn.
I was gonna say, yeah,
There you go.
anyone who wants to get local yarn, not not the yarn we're talking about. This is yarn package management.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just yarn package. So yarnpkg.com, and this is basically the same thing as NPM. But something that I found actually for anyone that's trying to like deploy stuff, I found that Netlify does not like NPM at all, like not one bit, and you have to use yarn. And it was like a whole thing, or I built something like 50, I'm not even kidding, like 50 times to try to get it to work. And I thought it was related to all these packages, and it was related to using yarn because you can't have the package lock, which you get from doing the like NPM install. So you need the yarn lock. And then, but yeah, for anyone that's trying to deploy to Netlify, NPM is not a friend.
And just to wrap all that up in general, so both NPM, the node package manager, and Yarn are exactly the same thing. They're package managers. So what you go out and do is you find a code base that you want to use. Like let's say we want to use the Stacks transactions package. Well, we would add that to our package.json, and then you could use Yarn or NPM to do all the installations. But generally on a project, if you choose one, you don't want to use the other one just to avoid any compatibility issues. So in our case, from here, we'll go by using Yarn.
Awesome, cool. So we already have Yarn installed. So are we going to do Yarn start? Probably like just to get it running.
Actually, you want to run Yarn first or Yarn install. It's actually the same thing. That'll make sure that you've got all the packages installed. That will help everything run. Otherwise, you'll get a bunch of errors. Then you'll do Yarn start, and it'll pop up a local list.
Awesome. Cool. So it looks like it's fetching all those packages that you're talking about, and there should sort of be like a node modules folder that comes up soon.
Let's go ahead and expand that source folder. Perfect. You're right on top of it. So here is where we're going to be doing some of the reorganization. And based on our Miro drawing and some of the existing code, the goal is going to be to expand the number of pages just to sort of compartmentalize some of the different actions that are being taken right now. So we do have a registration one and an actions page from the old code base. And then I have some empty files for dashboard, info, landing. These are all parts of the illustration. So the two that have code in it now would be CityCoin actions and CityCoin registration. Everything else is a stub that we'll be filling in.
Oh, gotcha. So I see some functions.
Yep. Yeah, so these are very simple pages. Like basically what we're using in this project is called the reach router, which is a routing option available for React applications. And to touch on, we talked about it a little earlier. So it's a vanilla React application and it's styled with Bootstrap. So very, very simple code base here, nothing super crazy going on. And the goal is really to look at the different components that we have and organize them in a better way. A great example of that is even in the code we're looking at here, you'll see there's a CityCoin container. And the container really only holds a dashboard, and the dashboard really only holds like one other item. It was just as time went on and features got added, things weren't added in a very logical way. And I think we can really improve that just by reshuffling and reorganizing some of the code today. Man, looks like you've almost got those packages installed.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot.
There is more than there needs to be at this time. There's another library called MicroStacks that came from Thomas over at Hero. It's something he's been working on, and actually he left, or I don't know. But anyway, huge project. Really cool way to interact with Stacks blockchain. A lot lighter than what we're loading right now. But since this is what we have, we'll just have to get through it.
Awesome. It looks like it's building some fresh packages.
I just want to see, go ahead and push a small change just to make sure that you can push it up, or let's see if it puts you on your own fork. Because you're not a member of the org, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, let me try to like
I feel like you forked it though, so I just want to double check. Like try to change something, set it up.
Will that recognize that I did it?
It should.
Oh, because I have that extension. I think it's like prettier. That'll if you have like extra space, it'll cut it.
Cut
okay,
it right
cool.
back out.
I'm gonna do like test. Test.
All right, so I'll look for that. Oh, okay, that's what I thought might happen.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
I think I'm definitely gonna probably need to like be in the org because you have good security measures. So
well, there's two ways we can go about it. I do think adding you to the org is a very easy way to have you be a part of this. And one of the cool things about this project is anyone is welcome to come develop. So if you want to be a part of the org, that's something that definitely can be arranged. So no problems there. And I will get you in. But the other thing we kind of missed in the typical workflow for something like this is how people tend to fork a repository, work on it, and then send back a pull request. So that would be your other option is you could take the repository here and click fork in the top right. And you'll want to fork that just to your personal. Okay, so now you have your own copy of the same code, and we're going to use that to push the changes back. So this is actually what you want to open with GitHub Desktop. And then now you can, are you still on the same branch, looks like?
Yeah,
make sure your current repository is correct.
Yeah, it should be.
Oh, it looks like it was still trying to launch it.
Oh, it does. It comes up sometimes if it's like if you already opened it.
Okay.
I wonder if I close it and then I reopen it.
Yeah, it's worth a try.
Yeah. It might be confused because it's like, am I talking about CityCoins like yours or mine?
Yeah.
I wonder if I delete this, then I try to reopen it, if that would fix it.
Yeah, if you could do it real quick.
Yeah, I probably should.
I'll tell you what, while you want me to do, there's something else I could show, like building some of the library while we're waiting?
Yeah, do you want to, let me see. Yeah, do you want to take over and do you want to share your screen?
Sure.
Okay, cool. I'll stop sharing.
Oh, and I need you to enable my sharing under security.
Okay, cool. You should be good. Let me know if you can't.
Now it's working.
Okay, awesome.
All right, cool. Should be able to see my code.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, awesome. So here, let me give it a little bit of a zoom here. Okay, so this is some of the existing code, and this is a little bit of what we're going to replicate per that Miro document we were showing earlier. So I'm going to pull this over. I'm just going to dive in. Right here, I've got outlined a lot of the different functions that we have in the contract. And quite often when we're creating different components, it is hard to know which function we're going to need when. So we're actually going to create separate JavaScript functions for each one of these functions in the contract. So there's a smart contract out there. It's written in Clarity. It was deployed to the Stacks blockchain. And that's what we're going to be working to interact with today. So I'll kind of walk through what some of the old code looks like, what some of the new code looks like, and we'll just start breaking through some of these functions till we get to a good stopping point. So let me just turn this off. All right, so I'm going to move that over to the other window, and I'm actually going to work off of that, but we don't need it up here for what we're doing. And we'll have to pull in some of these functions as well. I can guarantee we'll need some of these. Actually, it might even be better to do it as we need them. So let's go ahead and split this to the right. Okay, so first we want a function that returns the user ID from the contract. One of the fun things that we get to play with here is I actually have Copilot enabled. So I've never really used it before, but I'm curious to see if it speeds this up at all. So first thing we're going to do is export a function for get user ID, which matches the contract name. And ignore that suggestion there. And we're going to start building what would be a contract call. So contract calls in this case are handled by Stacks, the transactions library. And as we get through the first few, you'll start to see a really similar pattern. The biggest difference is, are we calling a read-only function, which just provides us back with data from the contract? Or are we calling a public function, which does take like function inputs and some other fanciness to make it actually happen? So starting with get user ID, this is a read-only function. And there's a built-in function for that that we can use. So what we're going to do is we're going to say our result, which will be a clarity value, will await the call read-only function. And now we're going to add some details about that function. So we're going to start with contract address, which would be the contract deployer constant. We don't have that yet. Oh, I see it's adding some at the top for us as we go. We need the contract name. Moved a little fast on me there. Function name, which in this case is get user ID. And I'm using semicolons when I need commas. There we go. Generally, there's an array of function arguments, and in this case, we need a block height. Or I'm sorry, for get user ID, we need a standard principal. So in that case, that would represent a Stacks address. So we're going to associate a Stacks address with the user ID here. We generally have a constant that determines our network. In this case, we'll be using mainnet, but it leaves room to do a little bit more. And then finally, there's a sender address, which in this case can be any valid Stacks address because it is a read-only function. Okay, so with this basic info defined, we realize that we definitely need a few things that we didn't have before. Starting with call read-only and standard principal, both of these come from Stacks transactions. And then we'll need some constants that haven't been defined yet. So what we can go back and do is take a look at our constants file. It's right here. Pull that over to this screen. And we're going to set up some new constants that are specific to the Miami Coin contract. Pull that over here. And the idea here is that we'll have some general constants for the overall UI, and then we'll have city-specific constants that can be loaded in the right context. In this case, it would mean landing on the right page of the router. All right, so we've got our CityCoins and CityCoins MIA, and we'll get some constants in the right places. So we'll start with the VRF contract, which is our verifiable random function. The core auth and token will live in the next one here. So we can have export CityCoin core. You can interrupt me anytime, Brian.
No, no. To be honest, I was just sharing this on Instagram stories. This is awesome.
Thanks, man. So here we're defining some constants that represent the different contract names for Miami Coin in particular. So now we just need the token. All right, and then from here we also need the CityCoin name, which represents the fungible token name of the contract, and the symbol. All right, and then we can do start block. So this is the block that Miami Coin started mining at. That would be the stacks block height. And then we have one for the wallet as well.
Is that number always a constant with like the start block? Is that like a constant for every project or just for the Miami Coin project?
It's a constant once it kicks off. And to explain that a little bit more, the way mining a CityCoin works is that the initial code is deployed and everything's set up on the blockchain, but mining cannot begin until 20 individual wallets signal for activation. And they do that by just sending a contract, sending a function to the contract that then says, hey, I registered, I voted yes. Once we get past those 20 votes, there starts a 150 block countdown, which is roughly 24 hours. And from there, mining becomes available for the new CityCoin. So it's a way of like having a community launch that more than one person has to jump in and say this is going to start versus just deploying it and saying go.
Okay, very cool. Okay, that's a cool context. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm going to pull up the file for stacks here too. So my idea on the libraries here for the different constants and things we need to grab is we'll have some that are specific to stacks, some that are specific to CityCoins as the overall protocol, and then some that are city specific, and then these can change from city to city and everything else. So in the stacks one, we need some of these constants. So here we've got a real ternary if is what it's called, but basically we're going to set up a stacks API URL. And in this case, it would check, are we running locally? Are we running on mainnet or similar? But I'm actually going to strip it down just to the mainnet node to make things a little easier for what we're doing today. We can always add back the extra functionality later. Save here. All right, then we have some derived URLs here. And for that one, we'll need an import.
I was gonna say my the yarn install finally worked. It took a little bit of time, but yeah.
Good. Now you should be able to yarn start. Do you see the interface?
Yeah, let me boot it up.
All right, so now we've got a function that has some constants defined. Now we just need to get those from the right place. So in this case, contract name, contract deployer. That's one we're missing. I'm actually going to call it CityCoin address, but this represents the contract deployer. And grab that from another link.
Ooh. It looks so clean. I just booted it up and it's running on localhost.
Sweet. Well, we can take over from yours. If you'll go ahead and send a test commit as well, I will actually make these changes on your branch. And I'll be able to stash them and then reapply them as needed. So we won't lose our progress here.
All right, let me try to commit to my own branch and see if that will let me do that.
CityCoin for
Is there just a question for you? Is there much of a difference between the refactor v2 and then main? Because I think I can only commit to main.
You should be able to commit to both, but we can work off of your main branch. That's okay too.
Okay, because the main 100% works. Okay. The v2 upstream, but that's because it's UPD / refactor v2, and I don't think that I don't think I forked that part of it, but
okay. Well, we'll just start with that to keep it simple. So if you want to bring here, I'll swap back with you real quick. You can show a little bit about how you got that running.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I'll shoot you over a link to my branch just so that you have that over on Discord.
I'm kind of rethinking how I want to do this at the same time. Awesome. Here, let me give it back to you.
Okay, sweet. I'm gonna then reshare my screen.
Yours is cooler anyway.
You had all the coded stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, great. So we got it up and running. I actually have a question for you before I talk about anything. So I did yarn install, but is there supposed to be a node modules folder somewhere in here, or is it weird that it's not in here?
Yeah, usually after do yarn install, you'd see it. It is part of the git ignore, so it might be hidden for that reason.
Yeah.
That's always my trouble with programs that try to help you, is sometimes they hide things that why didn't I see that, or why should I have?
Yeah, because it 100% works. Let me get the link up. I have it on my other screen.
Yeah, it should be localhost :3000.
Yeah, it's this one. So I have it up. But anyways, the node modules folder is hidden, but it definitely exists. So we did yarn install that added all of the packages and the dependencies defined in the package.json folder. So this is important for every project. Really anything with JavaScript, but there's this name, there's a description, there's a version. We know him. That's Jason. It has some contributors and who's helped on the project. There's a license, there's URL, and then all of these dependencies are what the project relies on or was installed on the package. So I see a lot of stack stuff, Lodash, React DOM, a bunch of stuff with React Router DOM. And then we have some scripts. So we did the start script, which is just yarn start. And that's gonna upload a bunch of stuff and compile with warnings, but that doesn't really matter. And now it's running. So it'll say basically when you do yarn start, it'll say starting development server. So thanks to React, we're able to now run this on our computer as if it was being deployed on a website or in the cloud or on a server. And now it runs up localhost 3000, and now it's hosted there. So we got our website.
Awesome. All right, so what you'll be able to do now is you'll be able to work and push changes to your main branch. And when you're done, we'll want to create a pull request off that main branch to be able to apply those changes back to where we work.
Awesome. So I see with the landing page, that's living in the pages page, the page. So I see under here, so if I were to change something, so introducing CityCoins test, I'm just gonna save this. It's gonna redeploy these changes since it's React. and we should see it update in a second or two.
Yeah, generally once you save, you would see those changes on the landing there. Oh, there it goes. Or no?
It's gonna refresh. Is it like not connected? Oh, I have an idea of why that might be happening. Let me try running that again. It's always fun with like onboarding on a project, and then you have all these like little hiccups. But then once you start running, it's like everything's so easy to work with.
Totally, and that's pretty typical across the board. Is like it takes a little bit to get set up, and once you get in the swing of things, it's really not too bad.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if there's something with my version of it where
while you're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and download your branch. Can you open a PR? Actually, let's do that first. So let's say you made a change. You know, you got one in the README, and you've got one that you just made now. Let's go ahead and go through what it would be like to open a pull request, and we can keep it a working copy or whatever, but that would actually open it up so I can work on it as well.
Yeah, totally. So we're gonna actually go back. So we're like code, right? We're gonna go back to the website with GitHub. We're gonna click on pull requests. We're gonna do new pull request. And it's gonna recognize that I forked the repository, and then this is my local version of it, or my account version of it. We're on the main branch, and that's kind of where like I just made that, adding that that hyphen. We're totally gonna delete that though, because that's not helpful. But then it's gonna connect to the actual CityCoin UI main branch. Oh, do you want me to actually change it to like change the branch, or is main?
Actually, no. In this case, it's okay to be main. In a lot of cases, you'll be pushing to a development branch, and the development branch gets pushed to main. But you know, that'll be more necessary as we get more people contributing. For now, it's easy enough to manage the changes, so you can create it against main there.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So if we're gonna do this, we create pull request. We're just gonna pretend like we updated the README, and maybe we say,
actually, you can even make it bigger. You can say live refactor. Let's title it that.
Yeah.
See how far we get, but I'm going to continue the work either way.
Yeah, totally.
Got an extra A, R-E-A.
Oh, refactor.
No.
Cool. YouTube. So there's different versions, but we're just going to do create pull request.
Yeah, so typically a draft pull request will indicate to the maintainer that you're not ready to include the changes yet, or you just make a comment in your PR that changes are still a work in progress. It's really all about just letting the maintainer know where things are at. So different people will have different ways of doing that. And of course, I know not to merge this in because we're still going to do some more work with it. So let's go for it.
Cool. So I added like mid commit, so very clear. That's that. You do create pull request. So now GitHub is going to send this to you guys, and there's a review that's required, and merging is blocked. So this is probably like a really great mechanism for you, because obviously, like, imagine some random stranger like deleting a bunch of stuff and then submitting that as a PR. Like, that'd be crazy. So you can set up basically reviews where you need to be an approved maintainer to then approve pull requests or changes to the whole code base. So that's what's coming up here. and there's going to sort of need to be someone with write access to the repo, and then it looks like you need to have someone like approve your check. So
Yeah,
good backups. That's important.
Those two that you see are called branch protection. So it's a feature that comes along with GitHub, and you can kind of define different parameters. But exactly like you said, we just require one approval, and then it'll be able to get merged in, and there's no issues from there. An administrator can also force a merge, but typically this gets you into the habit of having somebody else review your code before it gets pushed, especially when something like this would kick off a live build. So we don't want to carry over any errors to live as much as possible.
Totally. Are these protections hard to set up for a project? Like, are there where do you learn about this type of stuff? Like, is it like a course, or is it just GitHub stuff?
It's in this case, it's GitHub because we're using GitHub, but other sites like GitLab and similar will have the same feature. Mm-hmm. In this case, it comes back to the GitHub documentation though. So, a lot of times it's about knowing what you're looking for. The keyword is protected branches. And I just shared a link with you as well that kind of outlines a little more about that. But it's right there in the settings for almost any repo. You just got to find the right place to go, decide the rules that you want in place, you set them up, and it just helps for a better flow. If we had a much bigger repository, for example, like let's say we had 20 or 50 people committing, it might require 2 or 3 different reviews before something can go to main and kick off the live build.
Totally. I'm just giving a scroll of that site. That's really great. Thank you for sharing.
Kind of requirements you can set as well. Ours are very basic at this level, and they'll likely expand with the project.
Totally.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right, so now that you've submitted that, I'd actually like to take back over.
All right, I will stop sharing. All right, back to you.
I will throw this up. So this is a little bit of what it looks like to pull that pull request and take a look at it. So this will be using the command line instead. And what we're going to do here is we're going to grab that PR. So in this case, we're going to need git fetch. And it's going to be from our origin branch, which is the one right there on GitHub. And you do pull, what number was that pull request? Number 89. So we're going to pull number 89. And then you use head, which is the last commit of the file. And then the branch name, which in your case was main. That's the name of your branch. So when I do this, if I did it right, it should pull in the branch so I can take a look at it. And then now I can check out refs pull. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's do a git status. You can see I've made some changes, a little bit of what we did earlier. So what I'm actually going to do is stash those changes. So now our git status is clean. And then I can check out the branch that I wanted to look at. So in this case, it'll be pull 89. I think that's it. Nope. Git check out. I'm wondering if there's an issue with them both being named main now. Hang on.
Oh, probably. Do you need me to change the branch? Well, it would probably know that you could probably do like Brian H. Huff / main. Will that help to like differentiate it?
I'm looking. So like, here's what I can see. It looks like it brought those changes in. We might have a little bit of a divergence from the actual main branch. Mm-hmm. But what I can do is make sure we are only pushing changes to this part instead of what builds actually.
Okay, awesome.
Like right here, I see a head 1 update readme. So if I pull my code back up again and we take a look at, for example, the README, we should see your change, which we do right there. So if I were to change that back, for example, and we do git status to make sure it's on my change, we would add, you can actually do a commit and an add at the same time like this. Test, update README. And then I'll push that back up to the origin. And yep, it does not like the fact we're pushing to main. See if I pull the changes first like it recommends. No, we've definitely got a conflict. So it'd be better if you rename your branch.
Yeah, totally. Let me.
And then you can create a new PR. I'll go ahead and close that one.
Okay, cool. Let us do that. Oh, okay. I was gonna say if you could close it, but you already got it.
Yeah, I've got that closed. I went ahead and dropped the screen off for a minute while I clean this up.
Sweet. All right. So it brought me back to your repo. I'm gonna try to like go backwards.
Yeah, so you should be able to create a new branch. Did you do that in GitHub Desktop?
Yeah.
Okay. And then when you go, if you go to the pull request tab right there.
So I want to do a new branch, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Should I do like live refactoring?
Yeah, let's do that.
Do you care if it's camel case or like, is that good?
That's, that part's entirely up to you. You'll
Okay.
find different standards in different projects, and the dashes are good with me.
Okay, sweet.
I just like it to be clear but somewhat concise.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, bring my changes to live refactoring, switch branch. Cool. All right. Also super interesting for anyone that like has worked on a project, like deleted it or changed branches and then changed the code. So I basically had to like close out of the original CityCoins in my VS Code and then reopen the project because now the node modules is there. So it might have been something where it was confused if it meant like the old version that was deleted versus the new version and then where to install it. So just for anyone that's working on projects, just if ever anything like doesn't install or doesn't show up, just delete it. Or maybe just like close out of the screen and then reload it. That's typically one of those two solutions.
Yeah.
Or restart your computer. That always solves like 70% of the problems or 80.
Totally.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna publish branch should be to mine. Okay, so now if I refresh this, okay, cool. So basically what we did was we created a new branch here called live refactoring. I published that branch. So this is now under mine. And if I search under main, so if you go to the project, click on main, do live refactoring, and it comes up right there. So it's gonna be the same thing because I carried all the changes over. So Jason, should we do like another pull request to attempt that?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get another pull request going. I should be able to pull that one down a little cleaner.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna search for live refactoring. So just change compare. So this is my one and to main. Oh, I have to commit something to that one because it wants me to change it. Oh yeah, and this is just like the data store stuff. This always happens on like Mac, so you don't have to like commit it. It actually doesn't even matter, but just for anyone that has a Mac, these files actually don't matter at all. It's just the data store. So I just changed it to like live, and I'm gonna do commit to live refactoring. I'm gonna push it. So I just did some code, I saved it, it came up as a track change, then I pushed it. Now, if I refresh this should now come up as a change. So now we see I'm on live refactoring. I changed this, I just added live. Now I want to make this mergeable for the main branch of CityCoin/CityCoin UI. So we're going to create a pull request. We're going to do this again. We're going to do live refactor. Commit. Do create pull request, and we are going to see if this works. And we're gonna get those protection checks again.
Yep, so you're looking good on your side. If you want, I can take back over. I'll show what that looks like on my side.
Okay, awesome. Stop share. All right, you're good to go.
Cool. So coming back here, we ran into some conflicts and I went ahead and cleared out my own directory. So what we're going to do is the same kind of process as before. Is we're going to say we want to fetch from the origin, which is up there on GitHub, pull request number 90, which had this for the branch name. And when we do that, that's actually going to pull that branch in so I can check it out under this name right here. So if I were to look at my Git status, I'm on main. If I were to try and check out the live refactoring branch, I'm able to check it out. And then in VS Code, what I should see is it looks like you made that change on the landing page. Is that right?
No, I just changed the, actually, it would have been on the landing. Should it be like live? Oh yeah, I just added that.
So we can see your code change there. And then now as the maintainer of the repository, I can actually push changes as well. So one of the things I could do, for example, is take out that live, or I could add back some of the code that we had before, like let's say the CityCoins.js file. So with those two done, we've now made some changes on Git. If you're doing it command line way, usually you would look at Git status to see what's changed. You can add all of your changes with Git add, and then you tag a commit message that goes along with it. In this case, we'll say feature add skeleton for CityCoins functions. And when we're done adding our commit, then we want to push it back to the origin. So in this case, I haven't set that up yet. So we're going to say we want to push this to origin, and we want the branch name to match what's up there on GitHub. And if that goes through, boom. So now if you look at the PR that we were looking at before, then you'll see the change I just pushed as well. So this is a way that you can interact with maintainers to be able to push some additional changes, although it looks like it did not push it where I thought. Oh, you know what? I think that was supposed to be from yours, not from mine. Oh, that's funny.
That's so interesting because it's like, it looks like my screen, but.
Exactly. No, what I think I did is I ended up creating my own branch called Live Refactor. Yeah. Go ahead and delete that real quick from here. Do you call it Live Refactor or Live Refactoring? Live Refactoring.
That is a good question. Live refactoring, ing?
No, that's what I tried to do.
So you did? Okay.
I'm hitting the wrong place to do changes to yours from the command line. So apologies on that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I'll switch back to you for a minute and see what I did wrong there. I'm sure I missed something small.
Yeah, no worries. I'm actually updating just the YouTube link.
I'd like to get to the actual code writing part. But I want to make sure we're pushing changes in the same places. So we'll get over this and not a problem.
Totally. Yeah, I'm just going to jump into Discord and just share this. Cool. I tagged you in Discord. That's probably why your Discord got a notification.
Perfect. Okay, let's take a look here. What did I do wrong?
Okay, so we're there. So I'm gonna now build a project again.
I know we're a little over on our original timing that you were thinking. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, for sure. In terms of time check, do you have maybe like 20? 20
Yeah,
more? Okay, sweet. Yeah, I know we're gonna do another live on Wednesday, but to be honest, like I think this is actually like a great resource for anyone that wants to just get set up on a project. I think like when I talk to a lot of people about coding, they are sort of like, I want to start coding. And sometimes part of coding is also like getting set up and building your infrastructure or your environment to code in. So that could be like installing tools, installing packages, maybe working with the maintainer, like what I'm doing with you, where you guide me of implementation best practices or tools and frameworks that I'm going to use for the project. So onboarding is important, and that is always a step with any project, even if it's open source too.
Definitely. Yeah, and it looks like exactly that. So you did the process correctly on your side. Me as a maintainer, I made an update to the wrong branch, and that's why I'm having trouble finding what I'm looking for. What I'm going to do is actually remove that branch.
By the way, the code actually is running and like I can change it and everything. So this should actually work really well. So if we change it, save it. Oh, whoops.
Okay. Yeah, and on the next video, we'll have to get your Stacks wallet installed so you can show what it looks like to log in.
Yeah, oh yeah, that would be great. Yeah, so now I'm able to fully update this and save it. So what's really awesome about different React tools and packages is it has like dynamic rendering. So you're able to like save a change, and then as soon as you press save, it'll update. So that's why like live appears. If I like undo and save, it's gonna make that go away. So one of the really great places to actually like work with React, it's kind of like you don't have to rerun it every time. It's always running. It's just feeding in backend server to like update the state of the application, which is super cool. So I'm gonna go back to Miro. So Jason, do you want me to kind of like maybe get started trying to do some designy stuff, or?
Yeah, so looking at the design here, you can see there's basically going to be a header component in 3 parts. So then there would be a logo, text in the center, and text on the right. But the logo and the text in the center, we want those to change. That's the cities. So there'll be a little bit of an effect there to kind of show where you're at and what you're doing. And then the one in the top right for connecting the wallet will show depending on if someone is authenticated or not. And then right below that, I imagine that being a 3-part nav bar as well, where you'd have one to select the city option stuck to the left, read the docs stuck to the right, and things show up in the middle conditionally. So there's some of the basic code is in there for how that's laid out. Like you can look at how the header is done now. And that would be, let's start with the, I think it's just from the landing page, if I remember right. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the landing page. I could actually start just on like an unauthenticated version of something like this, just as a route. And that way, like, you don't need a wallet to look at the logged in. It could just be like placeholders for now. Would that be cool?
Yeah, and looking at it, so the router itself is living in app.js. So it's above the pages folder in app. And that's where I want to repurpose this router a little bit. So the router we have now basically looks at, I think it's 3 scenarios. Let me go ahead and pull up the code so I'm reading from it. Yeah, so you have the landing will check if you're authenticated or not, which changes where you land. And then it'll check if mining is activated for, in this case, Miami Point, because that was the first one. So the flow that we want is actually a route for each of the things that we have listed in Miro. So the first route would be unauthenticated. Second route would be authenticated, but no city selected. And third route would be a city selection. And we're going to put a child router under the city selection.
Cool. So I'm just showing people where like the routes come from.
Yeah. And this is actually a really good link related to the reach router as well, and how some of those routes are set up.
Yeah, I definitely am going to put this up because I haven't worked with the reach router before. This sounds cool.
It's pretty straightforward, and it allows you to match routes to components. So you can have something that starts out and says, okay, if they land on orders, it can show an orders component or similar. So it's pretty straightforward. And I would say mock it up however you see fit, and we'll keep evolving it as we go along.
Yeah, I'm just checking this out. This is cool.
Let's see if I can push changes to that branch now. If it works, then I can show off a little bit on my side too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we can switch back too.
Awesome. So if GitHub did its thing, it should have let me push there. Yep.
Oh, I just got an email. You are subscribed to this thread. I am subscribed to this thread, GitHub. Thank you. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so just a little bit with yeah, because I'm still looking at this reach router. This is interesting. So I see that there's this path, and then there's like some components, but then for this is just a path with MIA, and then it has the Miami coin with max supply, total supply, and then
yeah. So the idea this time around is to there's an open issue for it actually that Frieger opened, and the idea is that the path will determine what component is loaded. So instead of just having it display some of the basic MIA info like we see here, it would actually load a component for Miami Coin. And that component will have routes to different things that you could look at, like info or something else. So this is just one component that shows some information. This would actually be like our info component. And we'll have several that we want to use.
This is so interesting. So then that's in the components folder, and it's routing that. This is so efficient. I like this a lot. This is really cool.
It's going to get a lot better too. Trust me. This time around, the changes will make quite the difference.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna just copy this guy for now. Or actually, I'll show. Do you want me to just create a copy of the landing? Is that the easiest for like the dashboard or?
Yeah, like usually I'll start with a blank file and pull in the things I need, or you can start with a copy of it and kind of whittle it down to what you need.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Then we can just have it called landing new or something, and you can make sure it works.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Very free form in this way, especially as we're working together. And this is something that if we did it a lot more often, we would find a pretty standard cadence too.
Totally. All right, so I'm gonna make a copy of this. Can you still hear the music?
Yeah.
I'm really vibing out to this playlist. This is from like Soundstripe. And they have like such a good lo-fi playlist. Like it's so good.
I know it's a big thing for people to code to as well. Like I'll do certain kinds of electronic music as well. They're a little bit lighter, but I haven't gotten as much into these lo-fi channels, and I like them.
Oh yeah, I have like on Spotify, I have this like, I think it's like a 26 hour it's like chill hop essentials, and it's so good.
Perfect.
It's like a carefully curated 25 hours playlist.
Nice. Well, I just pushed a new library up to that same branch.
Okay.
You see the option to synchronize my changes, because that would kind of be the next step when you're working together with someone. If you're both making changes on the branch, you want to make sure you've downloaded the latest information before you go and make additional changes, just so there's no conflicts.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So it's kind of always do like a fetch origin and check, making sure that you're not missing anything. Yeah, it's super valuable insight. Oh, and I see this is now number 90. So that's updated on my repo because that didn't say 90 before.
Oh, good.
So we'll do fetch origin. And now I just fetched it. Now it's saying, oh, there's like something on GitHub. So I'm going to pull it. Unable to pull, the following would be overwritten. Oh yeah, that's fine. Stash change 17. Oh yeah, okay, this is kind of funny. So like I removed the live, I think, from this, but because your version had this live, that's why that showed up. So it's just
yeah. So that
some of the funny things with like working on projects.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, so it showed that it 100% worked. It's just, I'm gonna get rid of this before I forget.
Oh, totally.
So I don't think you'd want to have that on the main project. And this is also interesting just for anyone that can see the screen. So dashboard has now been overwritten. So this was something that I had created, but we're not gonna actually be, I'm gonna just recreate this again, just not too much work. But that's where like when you pull in requests and you basically do like a pull, it can kind of take away stuff that you've already done, unless it's like stashed. But I do see stash changes here. So I'm actually gonna just discard them because we're gonna restart from scratch anyway. And I didn't really do anything that was like that astronomical. So
yeah, it matters when you've made a lot of changes, but stashing is a wonderful resource to have. It basically just puts those changes to the side, then you can smash them back into where you need.
Exactly.
All right, so I'll push some more library stuff while you were doing that.
So just for anyone that's watching, so what we're gonna do is we're creating pages. So I just duplicated Jason's landing page. I just made something called dashboard. It doesn't really have anything that's that astronomical, just the functions changed to dashboard. Class is dashboard if we wanna kind of call it in terms of what the page is. And I just said, welcome to the dashboard. So then if we wanna actually render this in app.js, which is sort of the root sourcer, we're gonna do import that component, which is dashboard, from dashboard. And then it's gonna kind of come up, it's gonna say, it's declared, but its value is never read. And then it's defined, but it's never used. So now if we wanna actually call it from a route, we'll basically do the same thing like this. Let's say my endpoint, and we're gonna say dashboard, calling it from the top, and then we're just gonna call it dashboard. So we're gonna see if that worked, and hopefully it did. Okay, I really like this like reach router. This is cool.
So far, working with it, I haven't done much with it yet, but it looks like it will be a really good one for what we're trying to do, especially as we get a little more into nested routes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just for anyone that's watching, so obviously, like, I'm just working from an unauthenticated state for now. Depending on if you're using like a JWT token to authenticate or stay logged in, sometimes working in an unauthenticated state is easier, just to kind of like allow public visibility, so you don't actually have to be logged in to see something. You can just kind of work on it publicly. Obviously, just make sure that you're not like sharing like private information or something like that, where if someone was pulling from it, it would now be public. But if you're just kind of building out the framework or sort of a more front end, it's just easy to like just work on a public stuff. And actually in the next live, we'll actually be integrating with a wallet. So I would be authenticated and then I'd be able to access this page. So you can do stuff with protected routes. Obviously with Jason, it looks like you created some sort of state, and it looks like you created a hook. So you created like a const. So like you created variable authenticated, mapping the user session with being signed in. And then if you're not authenticated, show them this. If you have a decentralized ID, show them this other thing.
Yeah, exactly. And the decentralized ID basically works together with a package called Stacks Connect, which is a library that allows you to interact with the wallets and contract calls. And one of the first things we want to do is make sure people are logged in. So that part actually comes from Figure's code, but we're very happy to use it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it was really cool to see that you used a lot of like your own hooks and stuff. That's really cool. So just with different like use effect, there's just tons of hooks that React provides just natively for you to use. So use state, use effect, and just React in general. So yeah, that's really cool. So now we're gonna look on the dashboard.
Some cool stuff. I can't take credit for it all.
No, take credit. This is really cool what you've built so far. So this is awesome. You should take all the credit.
I'll share it. Everyone deserves a piece, but yeah, we're having fun with this whole concept for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So if you want, I can switch back, give a little bit on what I'm doing.
Yeah, 100%. Let me unshare. All right, you should be good.
Cool. Back up. All right, so what I do is I've got a little split screen going on, and I'm just pulling in some of the information that we started to pull in before, but I wasn't able to push those changes up. So what we're going to do here is I have a library for stacks functions or things related to stacks, a library for CityCoins in general, which will include all of our contract functions, and a library for the specific city. So I'm just finishing up some of that and making it look nice.
Oh, and that's interesting how you have the testnet. So is that similar to like the Rinkeby or like the Coven testnet for Ethereum?
Yeah. Actually, there is a full Stacks testnet that's available, and also when you're doing contract development, there's a tool called Clarinet that's really useful, and it lets you deploy what they call a DevNet. So typically, you would start with your contract code and work locally to make sure the code checks out. Once you get through that step, then you would start to deploy it to testnet, and you could run your UI against it and see how things are working. And then finally, you move on to mainnet when things are looking good.
Oh, that's so cool. And it's called Clarinet. I love that. Because it's like clarity, right?
Clarity tool, Clarinet.
Yeah. That's
cool. It is a lifesaver. You know, it's been a wonderful tool. It comes from Ludo over on the Hero team, and he is just a rock star. So very much appreciated. You can test a few interesting things in there as well. Like there's a console where you can run through different procedures. Like let's say you have to have A happen before B before C. You can do all that from the console. There are also options to view your costs because blocks aren't free. I mean, while it is free to use them, there's only so much space. So we're all competing for the same space. The more efficient we can write our contracts, the more of us get to have transactions and be able to play together. So definitely encouraged to keep those costs down as low as possible.
That's awesome.
All right, so I'm gonna knock down some of these.
And also just while you're working on that, it's interesting that you talked about how you'll deploy it on your local kind of dev environment and test it. Then you'll go to testnet and then you deploy to mainnet, because for Ethereum, it's kind of the same thing. Like you probably use a tool like Hardhat that will create sort of a simulated Ethereum blockchain. on your computer. Then you might deploy to Rinkeby testnet, and then if you want to then go to production on mainnet, you move it to mainnet. Also with like for AWS Stack, if anyone's used the Amplify framework or just GraphQL with the AppSync, they have something called GraphIQL, which is a GraphQL tester. So you can test queries and mutations in the browser. You have to run it, but it's kind of a test just to make sure that kind of like payload and calls on the GraphQL data schema check out and make sense. I think like if anything, like test-driven development is like super important, and like not for blockchain, it's like you have to do it because like if you deploy to mainnet and like you're wrong about something, you could lose like real money. So it's like you have to test before you deploy, or otherwise you're not going to know. Like imagine if you had to like deploy to the Stacks blockchain like every time, like that'd be crazy. Could you imagine that?
Oh yeah, it makes a big difference. And honestly, contracts are permanent. So once they're out there, especially if you're developing on something that might move funds or do like sensitive actions, you want to be exactly sure things are going to work the way you want to work. So your mention of hard hat is actually extremely similar to DevNet. It does launch like a local blockchain that you're able to develop with, and then you move on to testnet and then the mainnet. So definitely some good steps to take there, and testing is our friend. So another thing that we have in this repository is a test suite, essentially. Like it's all set up to test all of these different contracts, the way they interact. And we're really proud of the fact that we have over 90% code coverage for all the different code paths that were in this contract. So it was a big thing from the beginning, and now it's like every time you go to add something to the contract, a good general feedback loop is like I'm creating a function, I'm creating the criteria for the function, and then I'm testing every single outcome for that function. And if you get in that habit, it's not a big overbearing task to go in and write your tests, and they add up to be a lot more than you'd expect. So really quick here, I have to give a quick shout out to how cool this Copilot is. So because I've typed in 2 functions and kind of started out here, just typing the comment generated the name, which I had to do slightly, but it already knew what I wanted to include. And then from here, this is the suggested code for the read-only function, which follows the same as the ones above. So we'll accept that, and we'll just kind of make some adjustments here, but it did pick up that my formatting has mined at block. Looks good there. So now what we're going to do is find the same function here and look at what our inputs are. In this case, it's stacks height and the user ID. So we'll need to grab the user ID first, and we can do that through a separate function. So we will need user ID just so we remember. And here we'll take a look at what we're sending. So here we've got the stacks height. So this would be a uint, but a clarity value, which is what it needs to be, how it needs to be formatted to send it to the contract. And in this case, it would be block height. And the second one is going to be a user ID. So then we're going to change this one to be block height. We'll change this one to be user ID because I like them to be in footer when I can. And I wonder, yeah, I think actually that would make sense, because then we can have them upload the user ID. They can use the separate function to grab it. Try and do one function per purpose. So this would be a contract call to has minded block, provide the block height and the user ID, and it will return the result. In some cases, we're going to use clarity values to JSON to parse the results. And in some cases, there's another function called CV to value, if we can convert a value directly. For now, I'm going to write them all up the same, but those are some of the small changes that'll be coming down the road. So now we want a function that returns if stacking is active at a given cycle. Let's see how it does with that. Not bad.
So this is GitHub Copilot. So you just define what you want, and then it will generate code based upon what you've written in the past?
Yeah, it seems to be pulling from the same file. Like you can see how it named this is stacking active, and then it tried to name this the same, which is pretty good guess. This one is actually going to be stacking active at cycle. And in this case, we will take a cycle ID. So we're going to want to pass that to the matching function here. And what I'm going to do with all of these is make sure that the naming here in JavaScript matches the exact function name in the contract, because all of these will be the same across all cities. So the work we're doing for one can actually be replicated and used across them all. That's also why you'll see each of these has a contract address and a contract name field that needs to be submitted, because these are general functions that could work for any CityCoins contract. And we can use constants like this to make sure we're calling the right ones. So for example, if we wanted to call Miami coin to see if stacking was active at cycle number 2, then we would use the contract address and contract name from here. And then we would use the cycle ID provided to look it up. So it's just a way to like abstract it a little bit and make it a little more general. All right, so we've got one for stacking active at cycle, and I'm just going to continue down the big list of purple. So I'm happy to share this, or I don't know if you want to show some more of what you're doing.
Yeah, just for anyone that's watching, because I think they might be kind of interested with like the blockchain development. How do you know, like just kind of at a high level, how do you know how many functions you're trying to call? Like, is this mapped out in your head, or are you kind of just going as you go of, I think that this is what would be needed?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, actually. So part of the code that I'm very familiar with, and actually this would be pretty cool to show, this is the Clarity code that was used for and deployed for the Miami coin contract.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a Lisp-like language, a little different than what we're used to seeing, but very secure, very easy to read. And probably the coolest thing about it is the source code is published on chain. So you can really follow what these contracts are doing. And it's great to really be able to have that ability to follow like the whole call graph and not like, wow, if I submit this, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely love that about it. And I already know that I have a ton of read-only functions in here. I know I have certain public functions like registering a user. And that's where I map those back to Miro, just so I have the titles. And the idea here is instead of just putting a few functions or the key ones that I need, I want this to be a complete library of every function available in a CityCoin. So that way, as we expand and as we add more, let's say, oh, I need to know the current amount of registered users. I know I can call a JavaScript function with the same exact name that will return just the result I'm looking for. And that way I don't have to think about how to interact with the contract, because what I want to avoid, you can see all the contract functions here.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to avoid is some of what happened just over time as we were trying to add in things really fast. And a good example of that would be like if we look at the components for a stacking reward, you can see in here that the normal page lives right here. And as it finds your stacking reward, it sets up a button so you can make a claim. Well, when we make this claim action, it actually does a little bit of what we're doing in these generalized functions. It says, okay, here's what I'm going to submit, here's my post conditions, and here's our contract call right in the middle of our component. Ideally, that would be abstracted and a part of a separate library, and that's what we're starting to build on the other screen here, is to say, instead of having to go through these much larger steps, instead we could just submit the JavaScript function, which would consistently call claim stacking reward. That becomes an advantage when we use that in multiple components or different areas, because then we're not having to rewrite the same code over and over again inside the component, but instead you can just pull the functions you need from the one library.
That's awesome. And I feel like it's definitely like, I mean, how long did it take you to like learn? I'm just kind of curious. I can also take over for like screen share if you want a little bit of a break, but I'm just kind of curious, just like talking shop, like how long did it take you to like learn all of this stuff?
Well, a lot of this I picked up really fast because I had a really good base in HTML and JavaScript in general. And there were some learning curves around like what was possible with ES6 and dusting off some of the old knowledge and turning it into new. But overall, I just accelerated extremely quickly. It was like being able to work with the Clarity code, for example. Clarity is very restricted in what you can do. There's no loops, for example, but you do have the map, filter, and fold function. So as we were writing this, I would quite often mock up in Miro or similar how I wanted things to operate. And then we would just write the code to match, and we'd write the test to make sure the code did what we wanted it to do. And in doing that and in learning just kind of on the fly and changing things, it definitely helped give us a picture of what we wanted the contract to do. And fortunately for this particular interface, we cloned this interface from one of Frieger's projects. He's really big in the Stacks ecosystem, has worked on a ton of different things. You'll kind of see that name everywhere if you get involved. But we took that code, it was on Bootstrap 4. We upgraded it to Bootstrap 5. We changed the layout entirely and just went for a new look. But it was like half his old code and half some of the new stuff we've been doing. So it was easy to learn from what was there. A lot of documentation reading and trying again and trying again. A lot of console logging just to see where things went wrong. But as you do it more, you start to get more familiar with it. I think it's really easy.
That's awesome. So this is totally doable. Like, you didn't need to go to like 6 years of like intensive graduate level studies to like learn all this stuff, right? This is all stuff that if you're motivated, if you're like passionate and inspired about it, then it's all possible. Would you say?
Yeah, and I'm of that mentality that really anything's possible. And when you're looking at it and it seems like it's impossible, it's only impossible until it's done. So you just got to stay hungry and stay at it. And with what I'm writing here, there's definitely some patterns and some things you can look for in languages that really help to make you a better programmer. So one of my biggest suggestions is when people are using something like Copilot, like I am, which is really cool but really new, or if you're out there searching for code examples, make it a habit of taking what you search for and reading not only how they do it, but taking the time to rewrite. Because typically there's some small things you want to change and some small things you'll learn along the way. And you start to learn these different patterns that people are able to use, just like the async await pattern that you see with some of the different results, just like every contract call is technically the same, except for a few arguments that might change or similar. So over time, you start to realize that the differences are small and the core idea gives you a good foundation.
Love it. So I'm working on that dashboard page. So I like this button. I like that you have a function with it. So like on click, run something. So I'm gonna try to put that up here. And it's already kind of rare with the read the docs. Oh, is this actually in the nav bar? Okay. I think I know where that's coming from.
The nav bar would definitely be something that needs to be done.
Yeah. I was just thinking about like the how you have like read the docs. That's like that's injected on like every page, I think, right? Like every public page.
Yeah. I think your music just went dead.
Oh, it went dead?
No, deep for a second. I think it was just catching up, bro.
Oh, I think you cut out for me, actually. I think you look frozen.
Not on my side. Could be my internet though.
Oh, I can't wait. I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm back up. I've been having up and down internet. Here today.
Oh no, I think we lost you. I sent you on Discord. I think it might just maybe take a second to like catch back up. Oh, interesting. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, my guess is my internet's down.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, no worries. I can still like message you and stuff. So let us see what we can work on. So I want to see if there is a way to make a different type of nav bar. Okay. So that's helpful to know.
Yeah, it's so weird. Audio is coming through on my side, so maybe it's stable again.
Oh yeah, I can hear you 100% now. This is great. Yeah, I'm learning a little bit about how you set up the project. So I might, I'm just trying to see if I can disable the nav bar if it's on every page.
Oh, sure. So the alert mobile you see only comes up when the screen's small. It's basically just saying that the Stacks wallet doesn't support mobile yet.
Ah, oh, that's cool. Okay, I really like that. It's like that's awesome.
Yeah, so actually what you're looking at there is, let's see, you're on, let me open up your screen here. So you're on dashboard. The actual frame of the page, I think, would be up higher than that. Let me see if I can find it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the existing nav bar is actually coming from app.js.
Yeah, it looks like you have that header there. So I was just wondering, like, should I just duplicate it and then just create a second header and then comment it out just so that it's there?
A regular div would be fine. Actually, what I would do is create a so we got default function app loads content. So the way that content is defined down below, do a function navbar right above content. So you do function both cap navbar. Yep, and you can just start with no props. I don't know if we'll need the user session there. You probably will, actually, so you can pass the user session as well.
Okay.
And you won't need the arrow for this one.
Okay.
Cool. So once you set up that function to return, like, just go ahead and put return test in quotes.
Wait, you just said like do test? Like,
yeah, just return test in quotes. And then what you can do is you can add that above navbar under header. I'm sorry, so above the navbar code, a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. See where the end of the header after read the docs and then content, you want it right in between header and content right there.
Oh, okay.
Be able to do open bracket, navbar. I'm sorry, open, just like what you see there, like the little carrots.
Oh, yeah.
Less than greater than. Yeah, and then a space slash and then a close. When you save that, you should see the word test pop up. That's returned by your function. So whatever you return in that nav bar now,
Okay, cool.
will show up there.
Okay, awesome.
So I would just start adding the text, and then we can light it up when they show up and when they don't, something like that. Up to you though.
Yeah, definitely. I like that.
No, this Copilot thing is pretty cool. It definitely picks up on your patterns, like the fact that one of the things I've done is created 2 functions that have an or default variant. By the time I got to the second one, it knew how to format it for me. So that's pretty neat.
So crazy. Oh my god. Yeah, I was posting on Twitter the other day, like, I feel like GitHub Copilot, everyone's like, oh my god, it's gonna like take away jobs, but like it like might actually make like coding like so much better, like so much faster, more efficient.
I think it's tough, you know, when you look at something like Prettier, for example, it's pretty opinionated.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard, like I don't necessarily agree with all of its opinions, but I do like the consistency, especially if, you know, you or I are pushing code to the same thing. It really helps with that. And the same with what I've seen with Copilot so far is it's nice that when I'm doing something very repetitive, or even when I'm trying to do something that maybe I just want to look at how another implementation worked, it's pretty powerful. It can pull in some cool stuff.
Oh, 100%. Like IntelliSense for, or even just like pulling paths from components in React. It's like, is that like, I don't know. Like, if people can be like, oh my God, it's like gonna code me like on my job, but it helps coders. Like, I just think it's gonna help way more people than
any tool. It's all in how you use it, right?
All right, so just a little bit of what I'm doing. So just for anyone that's tuning in. So I'm working on a second nav bar. So this is gonna be what Jason kind of laid out here. So there's definitely like a drop down here where you select a city. So I'm gonna go to Bootstrap. You're using Bootstrap, right? V5?
Yeah, Bootstrap 5 for that. So just make sure you're on the version 5 of their documentation.
Awesome. So I just Googled Bootstrap. This is the first one that came up. And I actually did a Google search for a drop-down select. So obviously we can basically change like the styling and stuff with CSS, but this is kind of gonna be, you'd say, right, Jason, like what you're kind of looking for, like you sort of drop down and there could be like, I don't know, different types of cities.
Yeah. So let me pull up your screen. I was kind of lost in my code there, but exactly that. So I mean, you could just put in some city names to kind of fill it up, or you can leave the default 1, 2, 3 in there. I think the first goal, like when I'm approaching these kind of things, I usually do the core functionality first, and then come back to the styling after, depending.
Totally,
on how
yeah.
It can be done. So it's like having it with the drop down, and then having it with the piece I need, and having it with the next piece. It just seems to make more sense in my flow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I'm just looking at some of the designs and stuff. See what you're trying to create.
Yeah, just let me know. I'm just building out that library, so that's a bunch of repetitive functions.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'll switch back and show this off real quick. I'm pretty impressed with this.
Okay, do it. Let me I'll unshare. All right, all yours. Go for it.
So this is why Copilot's working so well for me so far. So what I've done is I've just been replicating some of those different functions. In this case, they're all read-only. They're all very similar, and we'll be modifying some of the results as we get to use them. But just trying to get the core of the code in here so that we have one for each contract function. And what's cool about this is as I'm adding more code, Copilot is actually starting to pick up on my patterns. So if I were to say read-only function that returns the first stacks block in a reward cycle, in a given reward cycle. So then I'm going to get a suggestion for what it should be called, and it's close. It's actually going to be get first stacks block in reward cycle, probably our longest one. And with that, we're definitely going to take a block height, and that's it. So now when I hit enter, what's cool about that is I'll get a suggestion here, and this should be close to ready to go because we have a little issue with oh, we got to close that right there. Perfect. So here we can see it picked up that I'm using call read only function, same variables. It knows that my function name is the same as my function name, just with dashes, which is pretty cool. And it automatically loaded in my argument. So as I've been going, like if I specify 2 up here, loads them down here. So far, it's been pretty straightforward to do. So let's add another one. So this one will be the read-only function that returns. What do we got next? The Coinbase thresholds. And I like that contract name. That'll work. This matches the contract. Okay, so this one, there were no arguments. So we get Coinbase thresholds, get Coinbase thresholds, returns a result. Done with that one. Read-only function that returns the Coinbase amount for a given block height. So this should be, yeah, for a given block height. So it's looking at the clarity code to make sure I'm matching. So over here, we can accept the suggestion. So then our block height is included in the get Coinbase amount. And we can move on. That's really cool. Usually it'd be a lot of copying and pasting and updating, so it kind of saves me some time that way. That returns the city wallet principal. This one would just be, so this one will take the suggestion, but we'll change it to get city wallet.
And just a question, actually, while you're doing that. So when you make the comment, does GitHub Copilot take that comment and then try to write based upon what you write?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually one of the cool things about it because, you know, usually you go back in and comment after, or you might like evolve your comments over time. Mm-hmm. But this has been really cool overall because it does that. Like, let's say just randomly we want to function that returns what's something random we could do? A median value for a supplied array. You know, something that I definitely haven't done anything. So in this case, it's going to suggest get median. It's going to think I still want contract stuff in here. But what I can do is go ahead and change that and say, nah, actually this one is really just with an array. And as I come down, I should get a new suggestion. And looks like it's just following the same pattern that I had before. There is a way to cycle through the different selections, but I think the key binding matches with something else that I have on my system. Because when I go to do that, I kind of lose control of the window here for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And it might also be it loading in the background. So I still got to play around with it a bit. But I was testing this on another file. So if we were to go into one like this, for example, that I haven't typed any code in, I think we would actually get different results. So if I were to say return the current stacks block height, and we'd have get block height as an async function, it already picked up the fetch and it asked for the correct constant, which isn't even loaded here. Or no, it's loaded right here. And it actually knew the JSON value to grab. So I do have this somewhere else in my code, but I'm actually pretty impressed by that. So what it did automatically was name the function, made it async like a lot of my other ones that work like this. We await the fetch, it picked the correct URL, it knew I needed JSON in the response, and it even knew what field I need from the JSON.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's where, like, if you're working really well with your project already, like, I think this will help tie things together and it'll help like make things more consistent for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, let's see, return the average fee of the first 200 transactions in mempool.
Oh, so it's already getting the async part going.
Yep, and then usually right here is where you get the suggestion for what they would put in. So they're guessing that it would be here, which is not the correct address. And then they're guessing how it would actually go through and pretty accurately return the average. So really the only thing that would need to be updated here is the URL, which for a mempool TX, let's go ahead and pull up the stacks transactions library. Or no, I'm sorry, not that one, but the stacks API. Definitely some key things to look at. So here we want to find the, where was mempool? There we go. Get mempool transactions. So it's extended v1 tx mempool. I'll just take the whole thing. So I bet if I do this, that was it, right? Extended v1 tx mempool. And then we could use this. And in theory, that would go ahead and grab the first 200 transactions in the mempool, get the response in JSON, get a list of the transactions, map them to fee, add them up, and then return minus the length, or divided by the length. So that's pretty close to what we need. Usually the next step, what I would do is like I just add some basic console logging to see the result. So you could say, oh, I want to see sum.fees.length, and I tend to name my console logging so you know what's going on, rather than having to chase it down. So I could do something like that. It would show me as I run it if I'm getting the correct value over and over again. But overall, very cool tool, and I see a lot of potential in using this, especially as we start to expand code bases.
That's awesome. It's really cool to see that like up close. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, brand new to me, so I don't even know how to use it yet, but I'm learning.
No, that's super cool.
So again, I'm just matching these up to the actual contract. So here's a read only in the contract that accepts a block height. So we just wanted to make sure that was the same. And we'll go ahead and let it bring in our code here where we submit the block height to the same function and pass the result. Yeah, make some pretty good guesses. I'm gonna give it. Especially when you're doing something like this. Like first one is the activation threshold. Second one, it's trying to suggest cycle, but it would actually be delay. But then my naming comes in correct, and the function comes in correct. Wow. Yep. This one's a little tricky. This one will actually take the address and the block height. Oh, it was pretty close. It tried to do address CV instead of uint CV, but this is actually standard principal CV, and then the uint for the block height. Perfect.
So the value for you is like you get the standardization, but then there might be some stuff that you have to change, like maybe a variable name here and there. But for the most part, the baseline structure is correct.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's overall, I'm really impressed. Like even this, to be get high value, and really all I'm going to change there is match the function name, and it knows I need the block height because I mentioned at block. And then here in the code, it's going to match this to the function name here. It's going to include the block height that I need. So unless I'm doing something fancy, this is a really quick way to prototype up some code. So that covers all of the read-only functions. So now we'll do a public function that allows a user to mine tokens. Close. And my bet is with some of the suggestions, there'd be a lot of cool things that can be done there. So this one, mount in microstacks, then memo. Yeah, and this one it doesn't know how to do. Like it's thinking maybe call function instead of call read-only function, but it will actually be a different tool. But my guess is after doing this once, it would pick up the changes afterward too. So test that out. Let me know if you want to switch back at any point too.
Yeah, I'm just actually going through some of the Bootstrap like stylings.
Sure.
And kind of show you what I'm working on.
Yeah, do contract calls.
So I realized I haven't really like experimented with Bootstrap in like quite a while. I've been doing a lot of like absolute and like relative positioning. So I was just like looking at when you have like MX3, PY3, MB4, like what that actually does.
Oh,
and so M is margin. And just for anyone that's watching, so I'm getting this off of the Bootstrap docs documentation. And this is technically the docs for 4, but we should change it to 5.
Yeah, 5.0 is definitely the latest I updated to. 5.1 stuff will probably work, but just say.
I just want to go to spacing margin. So M is margin, P is padding. So we can kind of see how this is going to affect everything else. So we have a row. Then we have columns. Bring them across. So what we want is, we want 3 columns.
All right. And I will actually BRB for a second.
You can already see the spacing kind of taking effect. So the less that we add, the less space we have, the more we add, the more it goes down. Oh, looks like padding Y.
All right, I'm back. Were you saying something about the spacing?
Oh yeah, I was just playing around with it.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff you can do there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, just a heads up. I got one more. One more I'm trying to finish up here, and I'm probably going to be calling it a night. Getting a little late for me.
Yeah, I realized we're like way over.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, we could definitely continue this on Wednesday. I do want to brush up on Bootstrap stuff because there's like definitely like floating. I forget how that works. How like you can like make something like have automatic or like absolute position left. Like related to this.
Yeah, because a lot of that's going to be based on Flexbox now, actually. So what you would be looking at is just some of the general Flexbox utilities. And then you can do, I think it's space between is the Flexbox option that would throw left and right to the extremes, and middle takes up the rest. But anywhere that you think of float, look for Flexbox or grid functions, because those are kind of their CSS not ancestors, other way around. Those are like the new kids on the block that do a lot more. So if you look at Flex Utilities, it keeps throwing you on 4.0.
Oh, it keeps like defaulting. And then like I go to
you get back, check it out. Your second result right there is the 5.0.
Ah, okay.
I think 5.0 introduced some breaking changes, so it's kind of hard to get between them. But there are some differences, so it would like if things still didn't work, that would be the next thing to check.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thank you for this.
Yeah. Try to get buzz in here. So yeah, I'd say after I finish this one up, we'll push the changes up and then make sure everything looks good.
Okay, cool.
All right, so I pushed my latest changes up to that branch. You should be able to pull them in without conflict.
Okay, cool. Want me to try doing that now?
Yeah, let's give that a shot, and then we'll take a look at our PR, and we should see some new commits on it as well, which is pretty neat.
Okay, sweet. All right, so
you can go ahead and save and push what you have, just as a work in progress too, if you want to.
Yeah. All right, so I just committed to the branch. I'm gonna push origin. Desktop unable to push the branch because there are commits on the remote that are not present on your local. Fetch these new commits before pushing.
Yep, this makes sense because I pushed mine up first, so it wants to make sure you're synced.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna fetch
and
them.
When you go to fetch, it'll tell you if there's any conflicts. So in this case, we were working on different files, so you should be able to pull it right in.
And that was like super instant too, so it already knew before I even pushed it that it was pulling it. So we're gonna pull origin. And there was no conflicts.
Push your two on top. Perfect.
Push origin. Boom. All right. So let's actually see what that looks like now.
Yeah, go ahead and make that full screen. And you were on the right page, so you go to pull requests. And if you look at the pull request now and scroll down, you can actually see both of our commits inside of it once it loads up. So you've got here, there was your initial commit to update landing. And I did my test to reverse it. I started adding some libraries. I finished adding libraries. Then here's your two changes as well. The only reason you see that additional merge at the end is that you had to pull in my changes on top of yours. To prevent that would have been to stash your changes, do the pull, and then reapply. But it's fine. It's about keeping a clean Git history where you can. But in the long run, it's not going to change anything to the functionality. It was just saying that because you had some changes you committed, you had to merge your own branch again. So a good thing that I do, just like as a good practice, especially when you're working in a situation like this, is to check if there's anything you can pull down beforehand. And you can do that by pulling up the UI, or you can just get into the habit if you did git stash, git pull, and then git stash apply. That means you would always pull the latest and apply your changes on top of it. And you wouldn't have to have that extra merge branch line to commit.
Okay, very cool.
More of a nitpick thing. Cool. So you can see we'll keep working on this branch. I think this is the same one we'll be working on Wednesday, but the idea here is to make some changes. One interesting thing I think we could point out real quick about this screen in particular is by clicking on any of the commits, you can see the specific changes that were made for that commit. So for example, if you look at the add skeleton of mine, see the middle one of mine, yep. So here you can see I started mapping out those read-only functions, I added 2 of them, and I just kept going from there before I committed again. Then if we go back and we look at the next commit,
there's way more stuff.
I've added some new files, I've added a ton more functions, I changed some comments. So you start to see those differences that go line by line. This is why it's good to commit often, because there's a lot of times where it's like, I only meant to change things, or you end up with a really big commit like this, which can be a lot to review. Granted, I'm creating a file that's full of functions. It's going to kind of come in one commit and changes will come later. But it's good to keep them small and incremental, because then it's really easy for people to track back and say this was the change that made a difference.
Yeah.
And version control wise, Git gives you the ability to revert commits as well. So it can be like, I didn't want that one little change. But if you have 20 changes all packed into one commit, it becomes a bigger deal when you're trying to revert or exclude one for that factor as well. So definitely small commits are a good thing.
Totally. Also, I feel like if you implement a feature or a function or something like that, and then let's say that you need to revert back to a previous version without that function, it's really easy to just kind of Control-Z your code and go back or go forward without needing to do a lot of Control-Z in the project. If you know that a project builds, you could just go back to that previous state than needing to Control-Z and figure out what did I do? What did I add here that maybe messed it up, or maybe I want to experiment and try something new?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some trickery. Like once you learn how Git works in particular, it has some things in place that can make that easier and some things that can make that more difficult.
Yeah.
Just depending on if you've actually committed. Like if you committed something, even if it's on a local branch, it's a process to get it uncommitted and to go backwards and everything like that. But more often than not, we're checking our changes before we go and commit them. Like commit is like, okay, this piece is done, this piece is done, this piece is done. So more than likely, you don't have to go back and fix those things.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome, man. Anything else you want to cover or talk about?
No, I was gonna ask, actually, you might know the answer to this. So if I wanted to like float right something, or float left, so like it's all justifying it, but like I want to be able to make this go like left, and I want to make this go to the right. Do you know offhand like how to do that?
Yeah, actually, let me pull in your changes, and we can take a closer look at that. You know?
Okay. I was gonna say it's probably because of this. So on the container, so I have like a basically for like margin X is auto. I have under for like the padding on the Y3. But I'm not sure if it's something related to the row that maybe I need to. It had something with like the flex, which is what you were talking about before.
Yep. Yeah,
but it had that stuff.
Let me go ahead and start it locally here, and I can play with it a little bit.
Yeah, probably in the next day or so, I'm gonna like dive more into Bootstrap. To be honest, I just realized like I haven't used this literally since like I think we used like our project together. So like,
no
yeah, I haven't actually used it in
not
quite a while.
necessarily my first go-to. It was just something that was already there, and I thought, hey, maybe this will make a little bit of a difference.
Yeah,
it's tricky. And one thing I'm noticing in here too is whenever you're using class in React, you actually want to be using class name.
Class name. Oh,
it gets me all the time. So
yeah.
I'm going to push a change here real quick, but let me see if there's anything else that jumps out at me.
Okay. Yeah, there's a project that I contribute a lot to, and it's in Angular, so it's always class and not class name.
Got it.
And then I always mess up because it's like class versus class name, and I always forget.
Yeah, it'll definitely tell you in the in the little screen where you see the server running. A lot of those warnings are those type of warnings, and they can be really helpful sometimes too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so yeah, if I were trying to get this to align.
Because it's all centering it, which is like kind of okay, but I wanted to sort of like read the docs, go to the right of it, and then select the city goes to the left.
Sure. So to see a little bit more about what's going on, let me actually switch screens with you here.
All right, I stopped sharing. You should be good.
Okay. Yeah, to show a little bit of what's going on, because everything's in this one header, I'm guessing we've got some conflicts on how things are being sorted. And I did remove one of the deflects. That's why it looks a little different.
Oh, if you go to like /dashboard. Oh, I didn't realize that this was going to show up for the whole thing. But yeah, I just realized that that's probably it. Yeah, if you go to like localhost 3000 /dashboard, that's what I'm contributing to. But
oh, got it.
But I realized that it shows the same header for like everything. So
yeah, and we'll get into how to move those into components, or maybe I'll play a bit with that tomorrow. But you can see here that the header is your main component. See how the CityCoins and Connect wallet are separated as they should be? That means you got the flex settings correct. So that's the justify content between that we're looking for.
Okay.
And then it's just not happening down here in this container, which has a row in it too. So I mean, you can actually change it live here if you're really curious or don't want to go back and forth. And we can start to see like, okay, was that what I wanted to do? Or maybe the justify content between. And you can do the same thing in the code, and it'll live reload as well. So it's kind of like two different ways to look at it depending on how fast something is. But my guess is we would want the header and then the navigation to actually be separate separate items instead of one embedded in the other.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would take it down with that header. There's the CityCoins in the middle, and then connect wallet. So this would actually be the end of the header. And it's going to get real mad at us because we've got more than one element returning. So we need to return a React fragment instead.
Yeah. Fragments to the rescue.
Yep, shorthand for that there. It's still mad at me over something because I've got some unequal divs. So let's go ahead and make it happy. Okay, so there's our header. And then we could have nav, class name, auto, 4. We'll just follow the same convention there. And I think that's all of our contents.
Also, just to highlight, this is probably the coolest part about working on open source projects is, and even just working on projects with GitHub, it's that like I was able to push something, you were able to just retrieve that within like a second, maybe less. And now you're able to pull up those changes and then edit them in real time, push those, and then I'd be able to get them back. It's just like, it blows your mind, like blows my mind kind of like when you think about it.
Yeah, totally. It's really fun. I think something like this is really helpful. Just to kind of give an idea of that flow. So exactly, like I took this code, I just updated it here. Let's see if I got the desired effect. I did not. Let's take a look at our code here and see. So I've got a div. The row is not full wide. Probably missing something small. I'm kind of taking a shotgun approach here. So let's see if I just have the header. I think I might actually not need.
Oh, there should be a space between center and container if you go up for a sec. I think it's to the right. Do you see like align items, center container is like, oh, a center container is supposed to be one thing.
Okay, well, and here, let's try this too. I want to see if we leave them just as small columns. Like small column might be what's throwing it off. But let's see if we just have nav bills. And then this one just column small. That way it should work off of the justified content between. And getting closer.
Yeah.
Actually, that's perfect. So what we're seeing now is that the items aren't aligning correctly, but they did split into 3 pieces as we expected. So you've got 1, 2, and 3. And we'd likely just have to play a little more with the CSS at the top to get that to perfectly line up and everything. Flexbox can be a little funny until you get the hang of it, and I'd have to play with it some more. But you got the basic ideas. So with that, exactly like you were saying, might as well just show how that works. Get my other window up here. So let's see. So now I've made my changes, so I could do this and say fix. New alignment and separation for nav, push. And then just by doing that, you would be able to pull down that same change and be able to view this locally in your code. So that is the really cool part about working with someone on someone. And when you're doing something like this on an overall project, it's usually like, here, you take this part, I'll take this part. And we try to make sure those folders don't conflict. That way we're not spending all our time like, oh, should I use your changes or my changes?
Exactly.
But projects are generally big enough that you can scope down a piece to work on like that.
100%. All right, this was awesome. So we have more stuff to work on Wednesday. I'm going to brush up on Bootstrap so that I'm a little bit more familiar with like the styling and the formatting. But Jason, this was awesome. Thank you so much for jumping on, talking about CityCoins and Stacks and showing us some cool code. I really enjoyed seeing kind of like the functions that you wrote and sort of more of the development on the backend side. And then it's really fun to see how we could play around on the front end side as well and sort of visualize a lot of what's happening in the backend with front end. So
yeah, Yeah,
This
and
is
what I'll
awesome.
do is I'll try to get these libraries together for the most part, so that as we're working together, we can say like, oh, you do the dashboard part, or I'll do the other part. I mean, we can do a few of these, but there's always another piece to tackle. And just appreciate you making some time to contribute to a new repo and have a little fun with it. We'll get this to a point where we can merge it back in.
Yeah, 100%. And Jason, again, thank you so much. I'll include a link to the repo. So if anyone else wants to contribute to Jason's whole code base and project, definitely check the description with the link below. And yeah, tune in next Monday, but this Wednesday, where we'll dive more into this and also talk about DevOps. So yeah, Jason, thanks again for your time. And
Awesome.
I'll see you all next time.
No problem. Thanks, everybody. Take care.